our current collective agreement provides for that they can't subcontract our work out and lay us off at the same time. So it gives us job protection. But the words in 2007 apply to Air Canada. And if they split us off, if the effect of that would be that that subcontracting language would be null and void, or at least not practically, or provide us with a practical protection. So they could, lose that contract in that scenario, and yes, they could lay us off.
Make no mistake about it, that if Air Canada is successful in what they have planned to do, then we will all no longer be working, quote, for Air Canada. We will be working for identities like ACTS or cargo or baggage or whatever, and believe me, you will be nothing but a third party. You will be divorced from the airline altogether. So the privileges you enjoy today because you are an airline employee, as an example, like being able to travel on travel passes, you're not going to have. I mean, it's just, you're not going to have it.
One would think that the public, although they don't seem to care about as much as one would think, right, would be worried about well-paid jobs developed over many, many years, all of a sudden being driven into the ground and being put at risk, by contracts whereby Air Canada needs work done. It's your work after all, and you find out that you're working for some other company which is bidding for the work you've already done. I mean, it sounds absolutely ridiculous to the average person, obviously, to think that I'm an aircraft, I'm a maintenance skilled mechanic working for Air Canada, or I work on the ramp, I work for Air Canada, I deal with Air Canada bags, I do this, I do that. I'm dealing with Air Canada cargo, and all of a sudden I'm working for some other company, which they control in whole or in part, and now I'm bidding for the work that I already had before. It's obviously patently ridiculous. On the other hand, in a commercial world where they can set all these things up with commercial agreements as between themselves, it is a very, very difficult challenge for labor law to catch up with all of this.
If, however, Air Canada decides to sell a majority interest, that is more than 50.1% of the shares, to an outside investor, that could have a series of impacts on the pension plan. If, for example, ACTS continued to be a participating employer within the Air Canada pension plan, what would happen, two things would happen. First of all, Air Canada would no longer have the benefit of the 10 years to pay down its solvency deficiency in its pension plans. The reason why that is the case is the regulation that the federal government agreed to, or when the federal government agreed to extend the funding period for the pension plan, one of the requirements was that Air Canada had to continue to be the administrator of the pension plan. If a new employer is added, what that does is it means that Air Canada is no longer the administrator, but instead the pension plan becomes a multi-employer pension plan, and then they'll have to appoint employees to help administer it. I think that's unlikely given Air Canada's approach toward employees. The way your pension would be split is, let's assume the sale takes place effective July 1st, okay, just for sake of argument. The pension you earn on or after July 1st, 2007, that'll be earned in the new pension plan, and the pension you earned up to that date will stay in Air Canada. The problem for you as members, if that occurs, is that let's say you have 15 years in the service in the plan now, and you retire in 10 years for a total of 25 years. Well, for ACTS employees, their benefit is earned on a 3-year final average earnings, i.e. your best 3 years. So in 10 years, you'd presumably be making more money than you're making today. So 10 years worth of your benefit would be based on your last 3 years. 15 years of your benefit would be based on your last 3 years when you were at Air Canada. And when you add the two pieces together, it won't add up to the same amount it would have added up to if you'd have just stayed in one pension plan. What happens to retired members under the scenario where Air Canada is selling off various business entities isn't clear. Air Canada could, for example, transfer the retired individuals to the new business. In my view, that's probably unlikely, not because Air Canada is nice or anything, but because if you transferred the retired people, you could affect the purchase price, you could lessen the purchase price for the business. And so Air Canada would probably keep retirees within it. Of course, I'm just guessing at this point. If Air Canada does keep the retirees within Air Canada, but it sells off all of the business, that could create some risk for retirees, because who's paying the cost for the plan as the businesses start to be spun out of the organization?
If in fact you are now a third-party supplier, you are down the rung, because these people are not making that kind of money. So the comparable is very, very different. And that's what the breakup of this corporation does. But furthermore, what it does to you as individuals out there is this. It is not giving you an opportunity to make a decision that will be life-altering to a lot of people out there. And to make it on the basis of that you are being told all the information so that you can go home and discuss with your families what is the path that you need to take. Do you continue here? Do you go to a new career? Or do you go for a new company doing the same thing you've got elsewhere? I mean, these are decisions that shouldn't be snap decisions. They should be decisions that you're able to discuss, and you know the pros and you know the cons. Well, that's why we've been in court. Now, we've already had our wages affected through CCAA. And we did that for all the right reasons, so that we could prosper with this airline, that we could move forward, that we had a future, that we could bank on a secured retirement, that we could put our kids through school, pay our bills, buy our home, take our vacations. Yeah, it was going to be a little bit of pain, but you know what? The long term is what we were looking at. And what do we find out? Well, we find out really that in the long term, the only people that are actually going to do okay out of this is the Robert Miltons and the executives, because they're going to come out millions and millions of dollars ahead. And everybody in this room has taken a haircut. Everybody. And they know where they're going. They know how to plan their future. But they're not prepared to give you the same courtesy. And that's absolutely disgusting.